This is a video about blood magic in terms of menstrual blood, and it could also be titled, the science of sorcery or the science of magic. I spoke about this subject before, and menstrual blood was commonly used in magic in Europe until this idea of the curse came along, that the Abrahamics made women ashamed of their menstrual cycles because it was directly connected to the moon and lunar worship and the goddess Selene in the classical pagan world. That the idea of a period was no longer considered the blessing of a powerful lunar goddess; it was considered the curse, or that's how that happened. Which this all came from the Middle East and Abrahamic traditions. It didn't derive. When people say, "Oh, the Western system," uh, it made women ashamed of their periods by calling it the curse. No, it's the Abrahamic Middle Eastern system that did that. It was imposed upon Europeans in the West. Now, just let me have a cup of tea. Blood magic. Yeah. Okay. How does that work? Okay. Well, I spoke about this before in another video, and somebody had said to me, "Well, I've had oral sex with a woman, and she was on her period. Will I be affected by it?" As I said, no, because you know about it. It's when it's done on the sly that it's a problem, and this is why it's a particularly disgusting form of black magic. It's very commonly used by Wiccans in Wiccan women, particularly in the lesbian Wiccan scene, which is a big Wiccan lesbian scene, and that's why there's a lot of mental illness you see that in that scene because of that. Now, what happens is basically a woman has a desire for a man, or if she's a lesbian, for another woman. She creates a ritual over her menstrual blood and then clandestinely feeds it to the man or the lesbian. They ingest it. Now, what happens is this interesting properties within the menstrual blood that's quite different than the blood that goes through the veins. The blood, the DNA in the blood ends up in the brain of the target and creates an epigenetic effect where it longs to return to the body from where it came. So the woman who has put the hex, the voodoo blood magic, is very common in voodoo, on the man or the woman, they have an endless longing to be with them. They miss them terribly, and they can't stop, they can't get away from them. But it actually gets more sinister than that. They start developing the personality traits of the individual who put the blood in their food. That's why I will never let a Wiccan cook for me. And I don't mean that to be bigoted or prejudiced. It's too dangerous. And it has been done to me. I will talk about that. I'm pretty sure it has been done to me. This is why when you have to know about it first. Now, how you will know about someone that's been done to them, you will notice a deterioration in their health. They just look awful, especially they just look terrible. This is why it's a kind of double evil curse. The woman will put the blood in maybe a handsome man's or an intelligent man's food, feed it to him. He can't stop contacting her. If he's disconnected from her, he starts, but she's keeping in touch by things like email or occasionally seeing him. He begins to deteriorate something awful. He will have irrational thoughts. He will attack people for no reason. He will have like a brain fog, and he'll just look awful. He'll just look awful. And it's a combination of emotional, psychological, and physical deterioration. And if they have any kind of addictions issues, they will manifest really badly. They'll be drinking a lot more, and even if they may have stopped drinking and been clean or dry, and then this one puts the blood in his food, he'll start drinking again. It's because he's falling apart. He cannot maintain self control. How is the blood put into the food? Well, it's been even there was even people sent to prison in the past for doing this. We're talking in the 20th century in America. Now, the 19th century, sorry. Now, you could not put the menstrual blood into a hot cup of coffee because it would probably destroy the DNA. So it'll be put in things like food that's been cooked and has now begun to cool down. So if it was put in something like a meatloaf or something like that, or a red sauce dish like a tomato sauce dish, the, they'd let the red sauce, and this comes with a disclaimer, this is how it's done. I'm not saying you should ever do this. In fact, shame on you if you do. As the red sauce cools down, then you can put the menstrual blood into it and mix it around in there, and that won't destroy the DNA. It's much more resilient and tougher than, say, a virus, because a virus can be damaged by the heat, where especially if it's near boiling point. But the DNA within the menstrual blood doesn't. It's ingested and it passes through the blood-brain barrier, and then lodges itself in the brain, and from that point on, an epigenetic effect kicks in, where basically he or she, if she's a woman, it's been done to her, and sometimes it's not always a lesbian, a woman who may want to control another woman's life will do that to her friend or to somebody like that she wants to be friends with. You be very careful where you eat. I'm serious. And just like having sex, be very careful who you have sex with. And that blood, oh, she thinks she's wonderful. She's the best friend in the world. I've never had anyone like her. I can't live with her. And you'll see them love bombing each other. It's almost like people start thinking, like, did you see those two walking down the street today? Are they lesbians? It's not that the one is enraptured by her because she has ingested her menstrual blood. The other one's menstrual blood. Now, then the deterioration begins. First, it's psychological. It immediately begins very quickly. They start socially isolating themselves from other people. Not everybody, but the one who put the blood into this person will tell them to attack a certain person. It's used for that reason as well. And that I hate this person, get him, or something like that, or get her. And they're so desperate to see that they're now basically their blood of the other person trying to get back to the body. It will do anything, subconsciously believing that it's going to return to her body. It's almost like a monarch butterfly has to come back home to where it was born. The same kind of thing. It has to go back to the blood, where the womb, where the menstrual blood came from. And it's the psychological deterioration is first, then the physical deterioration. If they smoke more. If they drink alcohol, they drink more. If they eat, they overeat more. If they have other bad habits, that happens more. It just gets worse and worse and worse. They're trying to fill a void that can never be filled. And then basically they die. It's awful, but that's what happens. They die. It's the Irish story of the Leannan She, about the artist who gets a muse fairy who he becomes intoxicated by and then slowly dies. I'm wondering if that is an allegory for a woman who does menstrual blood magic in old Irish magic. Also, the Slough Wirra, is a Slough fairy, is another one associated with blood and addictions to blood. So in Irish folk magic, it was definitely there. Now, the person dies. They psychologically and then emotionally, and then they behave in such a way that socially it makes them look really bad to other people. Now, it was done to me a long time ago, and I figured out what had been done to me. But I looked at the picture and I fell apart in no time. And if this has been done to you, here's the cure. Be aware it's been done to you, and that allows the epigenetics in the brain, the memory muscle in the mind, to start fighting back against this epigenetic invader. It really is a mind parasite of sorts. Then you must go complete no contact. Now, if you go no contact with someone who has put the blood in you, they go absolutely ballistic. Because they've lost control over you. And it's almost like a part of their body in an exterior of another, exteriorized into another human, has been taken from them. So it's almost like they've lost a limb or something. So then you know it's happened if they start attacking you constantly because they've lost you. And they try to tarnish your name and your image. They've lost you. Now you will notice an immediate improvement in your health. You will literally start becoming radiant almost immediately because you're getting your vitality and your life force back. Your body and your physiology and your energy systems within your body are now concentrating on repairing you rather than trying to get back for some reason to this other person who put their menstrual blood inside you. And that's, you immediately feel better. And after a while, people will say, God, in no time, people will say things like, Jesus Christ, you look 10 years longer. You look 10 years younger. And you do, and you feel 10 years younger, and your mind starts working better, and you get processing your brain and your mind, everything starts working better, and you see clear again. So the thing is to know it's been done and get away from them. Get away from them and have nothing to do with them ever again. And almost instantaneously it stops. The energetic connection between the two stops. It ends. Even though it's to do with blood from the womb, it's really to do with the neurology of the persons, of both people, and the nervous system, of course, which is magic. It's almost like they have taken a piece of your nervous system and connected into it like they've hardwired into it. No matter where you are in the world, that energetic link exists through the quantum field into them and into you. If you break contact, don't answer emails, and the further you are away from them, geographically, the more quickly your deterioration and your mental health falls asunder. That happens very, very quickly. If you're around them, it's less so because you're getting the oxytocin from being bonded with them very closely. You're getting that. But after a while, they start falling to bits as well. And that's why the one who hexed them with the blood magic gets rid of them, because they've lost their good looks, they've lost their charm, they've lost what made them want to hex them with their menstrual blood to begin with. So that's it. Be very careful of who you let cook for you in that way. Now, that doesn't mean any restaurant can be done to you, unless you're a regular goer to this restaurant, and perhaps a witch in there takes a fancy to you and as a waitress or something, and she might do it. But it's very, very rare. But if you suddenly feel a desire to be constantly agreeing with this person, and to be around them all the time, to miss them, to long for them, just out of the blue, and at the expense of all the other relationships in your life. Well, if you break no contact and they go bananas, and you suddenly start feeling better, well, you've been hexed with their menstrual blood. Look after yourselves. It's a serious world out there, and this is knowledge we all need. Take care.